Hey Joseph, how are you?
Hey dude, what's up?
Not much. Your film is awesome, so I wanted to get started with what sort of. I know I think I read that you drew inspiration from Jaws, Jurassic Park work of Spielberg. So what sort of drew you to the ick and making this film?
Well, I wanted to make a monster movie, which is a really funny genre because it's a classic Hollywood genre, but people don't really make a lot of monster movies. Like they try to reboot Frankenstein and Dracula every once in a while, but that's it, you know? And
Mm.
maybe they did the werewolf thing, but then no one tries to come up with new monsters, and especially things like The Blob, The Faculty, all these movies. Like it's such a great genre. And more specifically, uh, telling that genre from the perspective of a family film. Like, because when I was a kid, I used to watch like these movies on television, and then like during the 80s, they had movies like Gremlins and stuff like that. But now, if you're gonna get into horror, they just like throw kids at the wolves. It's like you've got to go watch Terrifier or, even a Final Destination movie where it's so violent when in like giving you these nightmare images of like people getting ripped apart in different ways. Is it really appropriate for kids? I don't know. Maybe kids are very different, but I still like to believe there's some innocence left in the world. So I wanted to make a monster movie for all ages that genuinely is a starter horror flick.
Yeah, there's a real sense of yeah, exactly how you described it is what you get that exact sense in the movie. So when it's so VFX heavy, what was your sort of when you conceptualized the ick, what were you sort of thinking of? What were you sort of trying to get across because it can be a metaphor for a bunch of things, and I think it means different things for different characters. So, what was your sort of view of it?
Well, whenever you do monster movies, obviously they're about something. Godzilla is the atom bomb. King Kong is the primitive versus the industrialized world. Dracula, it's funny, like it's a kind of a European dude walking around knocking on doors, and if you let him in, he goes and screws your wife, right? So it's the fear of the
Hmm.
foreigner, right? So I think with Ick, it's my modern treatise, and the question is, what happens if the monster comes to your town? Well, in the modern world, we've already had that answer. We've seen the monster come to town in many different ways, whether it's 9/11, whether it's climate change, whether it's COVID, whether it's politics, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, from either perspective, you think a monster has come into the office, right? And you know what is
Hmm.
happening for 2 weeks? Everyone freaks out. Everyone goes, everything like that. And then what happens after that? Nothing. People start living with it. People just sort of like ignore it. And that might be a sign of incredible stupidity, or it might be a sign of human survival. I don't have that particular answer. I'm just satirizing it. I'm not a sociologist. I'm not a historian. I'm a filmmaker. And what I do best is have fun with things. So I'm just taking those things and riffing on it and giving you an entertaining time reliving the time of today. People may say it is very unrealistic because we would never ignore the monster. But I ask you, is that true?
No, it felt very believable from the beginning. Um, and it's so easy to get like engulfed in this world so quickly. And then, but you also have, well, I don't know, there's so many, there's that shot at the pool that's such a cool shot. I don't know how you sort of even like think of that kind of shot. And then there's also the bedroom scene where Melina's getting attacked. So, what was the kind of most difficult shot you would say that logistically with all the VFX effects, all the practical effects that you're using. Because I didn't realize Mina was all or half practical at the end of the movie. So what was sort of the most difficult thing to realize?
This movie is constructed of a bunch of horribly like complicated techniques, from prosthetics to stunts to the fact that we're shooting in real sets. I mean, that's one thing. Weirdly enough, for as low budget of a film as we're doing something that even the big Marvel movies don't do, which is shoot in real locations.
Hmm.
If they step out into New York, that's not New York. They're stepping out into a green screen and they manufacture all that stuff. When you step out into our small town, those are real buildings. Those are real football. We never CG anything of that stuff, you know? All that stuff, like that's real cars driving down real roads. It's like it's all real. So yeah, the ick is CG, but everything else is real. So that is an incredibly hard thing to do in a film like this, especially for the budget. And I'm super happy with that because I think there's a contextualized feeling of realism. Yes, the ick is fantasy, but everything else is dead real.
Yeah, no, I think you did a really good job creating this monster because a lot of times you see the monster and it's like if that touches you, nothing's gonna happen. If you touch the egg, you're gonna get jacked up. So I was really impressed by what you pulled off. And then so I wanted to ask, but you also have Brandon, Melina, and Mina leading the cast who are like I just talked to all three of them, and they're extremely nice people. So what was it sort of like casting this movie and then picking them for these characters where they're sort of playing out of type? Because you see Brandon, you think Superman, but in this character, he's playing the complete opposite of Superman. So what was it like the casting process?
Well, there's some beautiful baggage specifically between Brandon and Mina because Brandon obviously comes with his Superman vibe. And you look at him, you're like, that's Superman. But then I break his leg. And on top
Mm,
of it, life didn't go well for him. This is not Brandon playing Superman. This is Brandon post Superman, you know? Like where has he been? And he's such an amazing actor and he's got so much charm. He's so good looking. He should be Tom Cruise. For whatever reason, we, the audience, have failed him, you know?
mm,
So
I
there's a
agree.
chance for him to show what he can do. And so I feel like it's kind of like a alignment between the character and Brandon. Brandon gets to finally show what he can do, and I love seeing it. I think it's a revelatory, like charming performance. And then for the comedic actress next to him, like his character has to pine for a girl for 20 years. So that girl has to be so iconic and so interesting that you believe that he would pine for her for 20 years. And so if you go back to 20 years to the 2000s, who do you pine for? Who's the girl of the moment? Well, they made a movie about that girl. It's called American Beauty.
Mm.
And she's on the poster. It's Mena Suvari. So I was like, I better go find somebody like Mena Suvari. But I actually ended up getting Mena Suvari. So that was amazing. And she's such an incredible comedic actor. She's an American Pie. I mean, she's one of the great comedic actresses of our time. And I just love her perkiness and funniness. And then there's Malina. When you try to cast 18-year-olds, most of them are not famous because they're just starting their careers. Like by the time they turn
Mm.
25, 20, that's when they get their fan bases and stuff. But Melina was in Lemony Snicket, and when I looked at her performance, it was kind of amazing because she played it so straight. She put no comedy in it whatsoever, and yet it was funny. And I suddenly realized that's the way the movie needs to be. Everyone needs to take their role like seriously. They do not play funny; they play straight and let the context be funny. And she kind of set the tone.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you're writing the script, was it more written like you described, where it was written to be funny, and then the actors sort of change your perspective on what you wanted, or was it were you writing it straight and then you
Well,
sort of let them play?
Sam Lasky did the original draft, and it was
Mm,
definitely had a comedic tone to it. There was definitely jokes, and still, and there's some great jokes that are still in there. For instance, the whole Walmart scene, like that's clearly a very comedic scene. There's like jokes all over the place. But I think the real trick is that none of the characters are winking at the camera as they say this stuff. They are
mm,
absolutely in belief of their perspectives and their point of views. Because there's a lot of point of views in this movie. Because one of the things that's interesting about monster movies is that in the past, they would all find out who the monster is, they would get together, and then they would team up to kill the monster and burn it in a windmill. In our movie, when the monster comes in, just like in real life, no one unites, everyone divides into their subcultures and everyone argues with each other. That's the way we deal with monsters today. We just argue about everything. And
yeah.
I think that's real.
Yeah, it's very real. And the ending, you leave it a little open-ended, not so much a cliffhanger, but it's an open-ended ending where the revelation that we're waiting for the entire movie. So what was the sort of decision making behind leaving it open-ended where versus giving us a sort of definitive answer?
We're going to be a little vague here because we're not doing spoilers, I
Yeah, yeah, no,
guess.
I know.
But I will say this, the answer to the question that's being asked is not important because once you love someone, does it really matter if it's genetic or not?
No, you're right. Um, and I don't know, like you described, there's so many like pre-existing IPs where the monster movies, Dracula, Frankenstein. So did it sort of free you up when you're able to do whatever you want, or like it can be whatever you want versus
It,
being, having these guidelines?
it is kind of a fusion of the best pieces of a lot of different monsters.
Mm,
The light sensitivity of a vampire, the sort of amorphous quality of a blob, the the overtaking of somebody and infection of a zombie and the mind melding of the thing. So it's got like elements of all to create its own creature with its own rules that you discover as you watch the movie. And the sort of ambiguous rules of it is also part of the ick by design. You never really know how it works. You never know why it came. You never know anything. And you know what? Because it's a reflection of on a certain level, of all the things that people say this movie is about COVID, this was written before COVID. I think one of the parallels to COVID is that we didn't really know how COVID worked. We would debate it. We would say it was in a lab. It was, it infected you. It infected kids. No, it didn't. And people would argue about all this stuff, but at the end of the day, people were afraid of it, but people didn't really know how it worked. And so that's the ick. We don't know how the ick works. We don't know where it came from. But you know what? I'm sorry. In movies, maybe you need all those answers, but in real life, we don't know. People to this day, for instance, like a 9/11, people debate what really happened, right? They have all these conspiracy theories and stuff like that. So the confusion of the ick is accurate to real life again. I
Yeah.
don't think it's a negative. I think it's actually the way the real world like sees monsters with absolute confusion.
Yeah, absolutely. And then music also plays a big part. I think you have there's a lot of great songs throughout the movie. So what was that was that part of your script or was that something that you added in post or
It
how
it
are
was
you?
always it was always part of the script because Hank put together a playlist for his girlfriend, and
Mm,
it kind of represents his moment stuck in time. So when we play all these songs, it's acting both as a, a tribute to the 2000s and his life there, but also a reflection of his stasis in time. And the funny thing is, that should make the millennials feel old for the first time because those songs are all 20 years old. You know what 20 years is? That's a generation. But at the same time, when Hank finally frees himself up and realizes that life has passed him by, the things he wishes that he did aren't going to happen, but he sort of embraces a new form of love, this discovery of something greater than himself. I think that's the journey that a lot of people do as adults. You start thinking only
mhm.
about yourself and you start thinking about other people, and then suddenly you're no longer afraid of death as much as when you were a kid. You're like, okay, as long as I pass things on to other people, I pass this music on to other people, I pass my culture on to other people, I can go have a nice life. I had my time. Now have a great time with yours. And that makes you feel good as an old person. And that's the journey that millennials are taking now. And that's the journey that they take in the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was very relatable, Hank. Because yeah, just going back to high school again, a lot of flashbacks. But so I don't want to keep you too long, but I am a fan of your other work as well. And you made a Power Ranger short I think almost 10 years ago now. But so now that the franchise is sort of in a little bit of flux, I just want to kind of ask your thoughts. Like, what do you think? Because you did a great job and took in a new direction that I think would have been exciting for a lot of us that grew up with the series. So, what would you, if you ever got a chance to revisit that universe, how would you tackle it, or what do you think it needs to kind of reinvigorate it?
The initial idea around Power Rangers was that it was made at a very angry time of my life, and I felt like I was being disrespected by the studios in Hollywood, just like every other actor or director that doesn't get the roles they want, right? And I was like,
Mm,
I heard they're gonna make a Power Rangers movie. Well, I'm gonna be the Osama bin Laden of Power Rangers and do a sneak attack and take my thing and crash it into their franchise, right? So I made the Impossible Power Rangers movie with a cheat code. I was gonna make it violent. I was gonna like show killings and murders and blood and sex and tits and drugs and make the Impossible Power Rangers. And I was gonna make people love it, and I was gonna make it impossible for them to live up to that particular idea. That was the agenda, and it was a joke. It was like, but the joke wasn't that it would be played winking to the camera. There was no winking. The joke would be that you would walk out of it and go, "That was fucking awesome." But then after you go, but I just liked a Power Rangers movie that had drugs and sex and killing in it and stuff like that. That's the joke. Um, if I had to do it today, I would take it more seriously. I think there's ways to do it without having to resort to all that. I can do the PG-13 version of it, and that's my maturity as a filmmaker. I'm confident that I can get the same reaction without having to press those easy buttons.
mm. No, that'd be so cool to see. I mean, it's a franchise that needs some new blood, so that'd be really cool to see. But thank you so much for your time, Joseph. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.